Welcome to the sideboard here at the Kansas City Legacy Open. I'm Glenn Jones, and I'm here with Jeff Blyden. Jeff, how are you today?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. I know you come to this particular Open a little bit, but you've been known to grind both this and other card games, the WoW TCG, where we're familiar with each other.
Exactly.
But today you've come with something, it's a spicy brew. You're playing a pretty interesting take on Loam. We looked at 4-color Loam last week, actually. Very different from what you're playing, but using Life from the Loam to kind of grind people out, lock them under Wasteland, similar kind of ideas going on.
Yep.
I think everyone who's cast a card Life from the Loam kind of had a similar kind of idea in their head when they did it, But your list actually uses Chains of Mephistopheles, which is a card we're definitely going to have to take a look at, to lock the opponent out of their draw step. So why don't you go ahead and just explain exactly how that works?
Sure. With Chains of Mephistopheles, if a player would draw a card, except for the first card drawn by that player during their draw step, they must first discard a card. If they cannot, they mill one instead, essentially.
Okay. And you combo that with Anvil of Blyden, which makes them immediately draw a second card in their draw step, and then discard it.
Correct.
So in order to get that card, they have to discard the card they just drew.
So you get to your draw step, you draw for the turn, then you discard, then you draw for Anvil, then you discard again.
Okay, so that locks the opponent out of their draw step, and unless they're doing something cute like, perhaps generating a mad, crazy amount of card advantage, like with Life from the Loam as you are, it's going to be hard for them to keep up. Obviously, a lot of the elements that are in your deck are the exact elements that might let them do that, but because you've got so many of them, plus your own discard, you can usually just force them below that hand size, right?
Correct.
So once they're on 0, they're just done. They can't effectively break out ever again.
Exactly. They have instants that they can cast during their draw step, but that's about it.
And those instants would have to net them a card to let them keep it overall.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have Dark Confidant, Liliana the Veil, cards we're very familiar with from Loam strategies and from Modern, obviously.
Yeah.
Life from the Loam and Burning Wish, effectively 7 Life from the Loams plus a toolbox sideboard, which we'll address that one in a little bit.
Okay.
And then a boatload of removal. But what you don't appear to actually have is a win condition beyond really Punishing Fire and Dark Confidant beats. Is that pretty much the plan to get there?
Well, there's also a Raging Ravine, which gets really big quite quickly.
Raging Ravine can definitely handle it.
Yeah, the way I looked at it is Abrupt Decay can't actually kill Raging Ravine, and if they Lightning Bolt it, okay, sure, I can get it back with Life from the Loam. After that, there's very few removal spells that actually see play, since they can only cast it during their draw step.
That makes a lot of sense, for sure. Alongside those lands, you have the basic suite of Grove of the Burnwells, expected with Punishing Fire. Which again, it seems like an excellent win condition for the deck just in general, considering you have Anvil of Blyden and Liliana the Veil. You can get a lot of value off of Punishing Fire. Not the first time we've seen it in Loam, of course, but probably one of the more. You're really just getting all sides of the Punishing Fire there when you can bring it back with all these other cards. Shifting over to the sideboard, we have bullets. I think I've come to expect most of these in Loam sideboards, with the exception of Winds of Change.
Yes. So Winds of Change interacts with Chains of Mephistopheles. You cast Winds of Change, and essentially what happens, each player counts the number of cards in their hand, then they shuffle that many cards into their library, then they mill that many cards.
Sure.
So it's a way to just get them out of the game completely.
Okay. An interesting wish target, and sweet portal art, of course. I feel inclined to note also that the deck is beautiful.
Thank you.
Several foils in all directions. I know your man who takes pride in the cards that he puts in 2 sleeves.
Yes.
The remainder of your sideboard is taken up with some ley lines, which are pretty interesting. Leyline of the Void for the graveyard strategies, I assume. Leyline of Sanctity for combo and burn. I imagine those can both be tough matchups.
Burn is terrible. You literally can't beat it. I run a lot of non-basic, so Price of Progress is still alive. So, and there's nothing I can do about that. But at least it cuts off the rest of their burn spells.
Okay, and Word of Command, which is a card I'll admit I'm not used to seeing in sideboards. What's Word of Command doing for you?
Several things. The first is that I get to break the rules of the game and cast spells that normally win the opponent the game during their draw step and such. Like, I can cast it against someone that's playing Sneak and Show, force them to cast their Show and Tell during their draw step, make the decision of not putting anything into play, and then I get something. I can force a person on Natural Order to cast Natural Order during their draw step, sacrifice their best creatures, fail to find, so on and so forth. And against the blue decks, they'll often keep their brainstorms, since it's terrible with Chains of Mephistopheles. Well, I can force them to brainstorm and essentially discard 3 cards.
Interesting
Yeah.
and novel. So I imagine you're just bringing it in against fair decks, basically,
Correct.
and a few combo decks that
Yeah.
have like very specific cards you can get.
Exactly.
Okay, well that makes sense. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
It's a sweet looking deck. Chains of Mephistopheles, always a reader. I don't think I've ever seen the card cast and not get read like immediately in tournament Magic. So always happy to see it. And
Indeed.
Thanks again.
No problem.